I knew that, a simple, hey, we're better now, it's not going to work. Couple that with the fact that he's unfamiliar with our equipment, us going out there and just showing on a piece of paper how great this tractor is and how great our team is, it's just not going to cut it.
You are listening to the Deal Breakdown with Derek Shebby, where we spotlight the best deals out there in B2B sales, from the open all the way to the close. Welcome to the B2B Deal Breakdown podcast, where we give you the play-by-play on some of the best deals out there. I'm Derek Shebby, and I'm excited to be meeting with Joe Toomey. He's a regional sales manager in the agricultural equipment industry. Welcome, Joe.
Hey, thanks, Derek. I'm glad to be here.
I'm really excited to have you on here. I know with your experience, the B2B salespeople out there are going to learn a lot. So let's get right into it. Could you tell the listeners a little bit about your background?
Yeah, sure. I've been in the B2B sales for roughly 14 years now. I've had a couple different roles ranging from I got project manager selling services and labor that I had with the previous organization. And with my current company, I've been in both as a sales rep role, as an account manager, and as a regional sales manager. I've been here now for 7 years.
7 years. So total B2B experience?
About 14 years.
14 years. Nice.
Yep.
Yeah, and you've been all the way. You've moved all the way up to regional sales manager, and how many people do you have on your team?
I've got 9 people on my team right now.
Nice, great. This is this. I imagine this is going to be a great deal. Then if you're telling one of yours over the career, so talk a little bit about what the company you're with now. What company you work for now, and what do you sell? What challenges is your offering solve? Things like that.
Yeah, sure. So while I work for RD Equipment Company. Work in the Southwest Ag Division, which basically covers everything west of Texas and all the way north of Canada. We sell both agriculture and construction equipment. I focus primarily on the ag sales, on the ag equipment sales. And we offer solutions for all segments of the agriculture space, from small farms all the way up to large corporate farms.
Great. So I know for the listeners that don't understand the ag space exactly, what challenges that does the things that you sell solve for farms?
Yeah, sure. Well, we help growers solve kind of a wide range of challenges. Kind of ranges from machines that are designed to reduce labor inputs to machines that are designed to be more fuel efficient, and machines that are designed to provide better nutrient or planting applications as well.
Great. Okay. So the layman's terms for everybody else, we're talking about like tractors and different things different systems that allow a crop to grow and the harvest to be better and things like that.
There you go. Absolutely.
Perfect. Yeah. It's a real interesting, especially right now, it's essential, an essential business. So it's great that you're out there continuing to help that for everyone in the nation and even around the world. So this particular deal that you're sharing today, why'd you choose this one?
It's a good question, Derek. I got kind of excited, and I looked through about 40,000 different deals that we've done over the past couple of years, right? When you offered or asked that question initially. Yeah. And I picked this deal because this deal, I think, kind of propelled me both as a salesperson into a leadership role. I think it kind of gave me the confidence I needed to take both my sales step and my leadership step, my leadership to the next level.
Well, that's great. That sounds like a deal that I imagine there's a lot of B2B salespeople that are right in that cusp as well in their career. And so I'm excited to hear about why it represented that to you and just learn all about it. So what size deal are we talking about here?
If we're talking about percentage of budget, from my prior years as a sales rep, that probably represented about 50% of my annual budget.
Wow. So it's like 6 month budget right there.
Right. Exactly.
Huge.
Yep.
That's huge. Well, man, yeah, this right here put anybody on the map. Yeah. So let's talk about it. How did you find it initially? Like, how did you find this account to go after?
Yeah, sure. So this particular customer has got some high profile real estate. Kind of sticks out. And when I started calling on this customer, he kind of, that was one of the very first things I had my eyes set on was this particular deal. And I even told him so. I said, before we end our relationship, this part of your business is going to be ours. And obviously it was all talk and showmanship, but and deep down, I kind of knew that's kind of what I had my eyes set on.
That's awesome. So was there any sort of business that you were doing with them today at any capacity?
Do we do business with them today?
I mean, back then when this deal.
Oh, okay, yeah, we did. We had a small portion of their business, but not a bunch.
Okay, good. So, I mean, I imagine the ag space, there's so many different things that you can sell. So the big deal inside of any sort of farm, right. It would almost be considered a new customer to try to break into that size, right?
Yeah.
100%. Well, great. Well, so from there, what was your first, like, how did you first, I know put this down here is what's your first prospecting touch like, but
yep.
It sounds like you were already talking to him saying, I want to get this whole side of your business. So how did you get them open to start looking at that with you?
Sure. So obviously we started with the initial showmanship, and then we kind of, our relationship grew a little bit, I started recognizing that, hey, where we were with the machine's life, we're getting close, and close is a relative term, right? Close in the ag businesses, to trade out a tractor, we're about a year away. So I said, we're about a year away from trading this tractor out. So I better kind of start coming up with a strategy with these guys. What helps me is to help identify why haven't we been doing business with them already? So that's kind of what we first start talking about is, what's going on? Well, how come you guys haven't been purchasing this piece of equipment from us in the past? Kind of laying out their objections early.
Yeah.
So we had that conversation, which was, it was uncomfortable for sure.
Yeah.
Because
was that in person or was that over the phone or?
No, that was in person. Yeah. Okay. But I'd say with this particular customer, we're about 90% in person.
Okay. So you're out there checking on one of the small things you do with these guys, this farm, this grower. Yep. And then while you're there, you asked, I guess we could kind of assume that touch was almost like a first appointment in a sense.
Oh, 100%.
So, and then that's when you were asking tough discovery questions like, why aren't we doing business?
Yep. What's holding us up? What's preventing us?
So what'd they say?
It was a couple different things. The biggest thing was they didn't feel the support. They had some negative experiences with our support team in the past, which was pretty hard for them to get past. The machine performance, they didn't really have much experience running our equipment, so they were comfortable, right? And that's a good word to call it. They were comfortable. I wouldn't say they were entirely satisfied with the competitive piece, but they were okay with it.
Wow.
So didn't have much of a reason to move.
Yeah, those are two common objections that people give.
Yep.
That's difficult to handle. Absolutely. Right? The first one about them not already having a good service experience with your company. How did you begin to change that perception? What did you say?
Yep. So, it's a good question. So I knew that, a simple, hey, we're better now wasn't going to cut it for this guy.
Yeah.
No, it's not going to work. Couple that with the fact that he is unfamiliar with our equipment. Us going out there and just showing on a piece of paper how great this tractor is and how great our team is, it's just not going to cut it. Pair that with the fact that, like I said, we're about a year away from him making any sort of decision. I thought it was the right timing. So what we did was we jumped into the idea of having a long-term extended demo or a cheap rental. So what we did is the idea that I brought to the customer was, hey, I understand you don't have much experiences with our support or the equipment. Why don't we give you a bunch of exposure to both?
I like it.
And I said, and not to mention, by giving you the discounted rate, we'll also have some skin in the game as well. We're losing, approximately $4,000 to $5,000, or discounting approximately $4,000 to $5,000 a month, which is pretty substantial, right? So that's kind of how we jump-started the conversation. Gave us the opportunity to say, hey, we have the piece of equipment, we stand by it. Run that next to yours. and you get to experience our service and parts departments for the next 6 months.
Wow. And that's, I love that. I mean, when you got this crazy objection, two of them,
Yep.
One being, again, that they had a bad experience with your service team. I mean, that's, some people, they hear that, it's just hard to get past it in general. And the second one is status quo. I mean, what's harder? I mean, you got the oldest industry, farmers, and they've been doing something the entire way, the way that they've always been doing it, telling you that, they haven't gone with you guys because they've been doing it the way they've always been doing it.
Most common objection.
Yeah. Common for your industry. And you basically said, okay, well, why don't you try it out for 6 months?
Yep, absolutely.
And was it just as easy as that, or was there some pushback on his part before he said?
There was some pushback on both of our parts, to be honest with you. We had some pushback from a customer because they're still, I mentioned we gave him a 50% discount, but he still had to pay for the other 50%. Right? So he's got to have somewhat of an interest in exploring what the other options are, right? And at this point, he didn't have a bunch.
So it was a paid trial, basically.
Yeah, it's a paid trial. Yeah. We give a 50% discount on the rent.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, we're in essence partnering. He's paying 50%, and we're eating 50%. And it kind of, like I said, what that kind of does is allows him to get the full exposure to both sides. The machine performance as well as the support performance.
Yeah.
So, along with that, we also had some buy off on our own internal processes. This is a pretty big investment. For us, this isn't money that we just don't collect. This is money that we still have to pay for. We still have to pay for the use of that machine. So it took some convincing on our side as well, but I think everyone saw the light at the end of the tunnel and said, let's take a shot at it. Absolutely.
And the customer himself said, finally, he said, okay, I'll check it out. Was there anything that pushed him over?
Well, I think they appreciated the effort. I think they appreciated the fact that we were that invested into the deal.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that does. I mean, it's an unnatural offer. And so but on your part, you're not only selling the customer on it, you're also selling your own two different parts of it. So now at this point, you get this trial, and it's paid trial for 6 months. Mm-hmm. Now I'm just got to know, did you have any service challenges throughout that you had to get in there and make sure he had a good experience?
Yeah, no, I think we had something that we can consider normal or average service issues, right? The customer's he did his homework, and that he didn't want a brand new machine, which was my first attempt. I wanted to send a brand new machine out there. Obviously, it's going to perform for 6 months.
Sure.
He wanted a machine that was closer to like 75% of its life, which, truth be told, gave me some concerns.
Yeah.
We had to talk with our support teams and said, hey, here's what we've got riding here. We need to make sure that we give this customer the very best service that he can possibly get. But also, because of the relationship that I had with that customer, I was pretty hands off. I didn't do a whole lot of thumb on the other departments.
That's great.
Yep.
So then eventually were there any hiccups whatsoever along that process at all?
No, I think, yeah, sure. There were breakdowns here and there, but I think farmers expect, tractors break. They run them hard, and it's part of the business.
Okay.
It's typically just how well you respond to them.
Got it. Okay, so then from there, the next step was the proposal. Then I guess, right?
Sure.
So tell me about that.
So then we kind of followed up toward the end of the season with their, how well the machine performed. I talked a little bit about the support element of it, and everybody was happy. So we fast forward probably another 6 months or so after the end of that rental. So we're coming close to buying time. And
wait, do they still have the rental?
No.
Okay, so you picked it up.
Right. The rental went out for about 6 months. At the end of the 6 months, we did a review, and basically just got them to do some head nodding. Yeah, the machine performed well. Yeah, the support team, supported well. and you did what you said. So then we fast forwarded to, hey, Mr. Customer, I know that it's time to replace those machines that you have sitting in your yard. You rented one last year. Can we sit down and take a look at the prospects of replacing with ours? And we busted out that, the performance data again. Hey, you've talked about the performance of your competitive equipment. Well, I outlined it in tables. Took third-party testing results. Here's what how your machine performs, which is great, and here's how our machine performs. I think that was kind of an eye opener too, because we didn't run from the areas that we didn't perform quite as well.
Yeah.
Right. We just identify it as a thing.
Right.
So we took that. We went through all of the work orders that were generated. You mentioned, were there any hiccups along the way? I wouldn't necessarily call a work order, a hiccup or, a machine breaks down. It's just, I look at it as more of an opportunity, especially with this customer who didn't necessarily have a whole lot of confidence in our ability. We talked about it and we demonstrated how quickly we responded. Here was the problem. Here's how quickly we fixed it. You were down for this many hours. So it really kind of was an eye opener to say, hey, we're not afraid to not afraid to look at these challenges in the eye and say, yeah, we can overcome them. We can support you.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to back up real quick because I like this. I want to go back to your trial. So your trial, they had it for 6 months, and I imagine that was their busy season.
Yeah.
And then you took it away. Was there any sort of, let's talk about this right now? I really like this. It's here. We're comfortable with it. Let's just work out a deal now. Was that even part of the conversation?
No, not necessarily part of the conversation. Not because I wouldn't have wanted it to be, just because the quantity that they would have purchased we wouldn't have been able to fulfill their equipment needs right away. We didn't necessarily have the inventory on the ground. Didn't necessarily match 100% spec for what they would like. The machine that we gave them was more or less just representative, close to what they would.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you guys are okay with just sitting back saying, okay, we'll come back in 6 months when everything's up, basically. That's just normal.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty common tempo.
Okay, good. Okay. So yeah, I was wondering about that, thinking, man, couldn't get them to keep it at the time. Okay. So you have this comparison and they see how theirs were performing, and you talk about how your trial performed for them, and you gave them this quote. Tell me, how did the rest of this part go?
Yeah, sure. So like I said, the first part was the performance data of the machine that they were renting to us. Here's how well it performed. Here was your fuel efficiency. Here was how often it was working. Here's how hard the engine was working. Here's where you used a little bit of training with your operator. This is a lot of internal data that we can, kind of diagnose and help machine performance with, which kind of blew their mind to begin with, because not a lot of dealers possess that at all.
Right.
So, we took that, and then we took their, a side-by-side comparison with their machine and our machine. Say, hey, here's the black and white. This is third-party machine performance data. This is how well they perform. Here's how well we perform.
Right.
And so we took that, and we took all the service history from the time that they rented it. So you had a almost retired tractor, and you had it for 6 months, and here's the problems that you had, which were, I think, minimal. I wouldn't say there weren't any, but they were just about average. And here's how well our parts and service team supported it. You mentioned before you had, service issues. Did you have any this time? That way you kind of lay out the objectives for, the objections for them,
Right. And it's a two-way conversation, and it becomes about them and their own expectations. It's great. Along this, I know we're still talking about the proposal here. I'm just curious, was competition involved at all?
Oh yeah, 100%. The competitors were, they had been married to this piece of equipment for, years and years and years. So Although I'm not 100% positive, I'd fair to say so.
Right. So did you know that they were, if the competition was putting out a quote for the replacement?
Yeah, I would assume so. Yeah.
But was it coming up? Did it come up? Did you say, "Oh, this person's giving us this quote"? Was it coming up in the conversation?
No, it didn't come up. That's one of the things I try to do as much as possible is veer away from talking about our competitors during the sales cycle, during the conversation. I'd rather talk about this tractor's performance and how well you like us, and how well we supported you.
Right.
Whether or not they've had negative experiences with our competitors is beside the point.
Yeah, and I think it shows that you're building value in a different way, and I think by you not talking about the competitors and just talking about, let's just talk about the actual performance and what they're looking for, you're separating yourself from the competition by doing that. So it's great. So when you finally gave them the price, did they move forward right away?
No, which kind of is where I was reluctant to say they weren't involved. The competitors weren't involved at all, because there were, of course, every sales guy would love to say, yeah, I put the deal, the PO on the desk, and they signed it right away. No, it was a sizable purchase for them. So it took some mulling over. I'd say probably a week to 10 days. It was we heard back and
that was the yes after 10 days.
Was the yes.
Now with it, did you have to do anything to create urgency? So while you're waiting, while they're thinking about it,
so what we did to create urgency was just basically let them know that, the window of, if they were looking to get the equipment by this date, they would need to place the order by this date, just because, of production line.
Right.
So
that makes sense.
Yep. And so we told them, hey, you need to, if you need it by this date, you're going to need to place the order by this date. Not saying that you have to, but if you're looking to receive this equipment by then, here's your deadline.
And did they meet that deadline?
They did. Yep.
That's great.
Barely.
That's awesome.
Barely, but yeah, I made it.
But you kept leaning on that deadline, saying, hey, you still got time, but I'm just
of course.
That's great. So looking back on this specific deal, what do you think were 3 things that won the deal for you that you did well?
Won the deal. Good question. I would say I think that they really appreciated the side-by-side comparison. Let them know that we weren't running away, from the challenges that we faced. Also, I think it probably did a little bit of their homework for them. This particular customer is pretty data-driven, and so I knew that already. So I already, prepared the presentation accordingly. So I think that they appreciated that. The extended demo / rental period was huge. Like I said, it accomplished a couple of different things. Number one, it gave them plenty of time to familiarize themselves with the equipment. Number 2, gave them plenty of opportunity to see any weaknesses that we might have in supporting it. And number 3, like I said, let them know that we're invested.
Yeah, absolutely. It comes down to it. It's for any of the B2B salespeople listening in, and they run into the objection of saying, we've had bad experience with the company in the past. I like how you approached it, because you said, okay, well, let's put it to the test. And by you showing you got how RDO was invested on your end, that showed commitment to proving that, that whatever, it was a fluke that they had, right? And that you guys aren't running from it. I love that.
Absolutely.
And also, what a better way to move someone from the status quo and to show them something different. For that face-off, that comparison table, how long would you say that took you to put together?
Yeah, good question. That was going to lead me to one of my last remarks. Is it took quite a bit of time. You have to thumb through pages and pages and pages of science data. For lack of a better term, right? Guys that are just sitting in a lab testing tractors, right? So you get all kind of data out of it, but a lot of it's not necessarily tangible. You can't really use it. But there are, obviously some things in there that trip customers' triggers, fuel consumption, how much actual power the machine's generating versus its advertising, stuff like that. And like I said, I knew that this guy was data driven. He eats it up. So I structured it accordingly. I'd say, I don't know, probably anywhere between 5 and 10 hours collectively.
Man.
Yeah.
I bet you probably became more of an expert on that thing after that.
Right.
I imagine you sold a lot more of that technology and sold against that technology a lot more because of the time you spent learning. Sure. So looking back, same question, but with things that you would have done differently.
Yep. Looking back on that deal in particular, I think we left a couple of other pieces of equipment on the table.
Ah.
I think we ended up selling them 8 tractors, and I felt like we had more. I didn't have the total confidence to push it towards the end when I knew that it was swinging. It was swaying our way. I lacked the confidence to say, instead of taking these 8, why don't we look at doing these other 6 additionally as well? But I just kind of wanted to cash out, so to speak.
Yeah.
To this day, I still regret it.
6 months of your budget in one deal. I can understand that. Yeah. And what other things would you have done differently?
He's had a lot to say about the support element, and we were able to sell a portion of that up front, which guarantees it basically allows for us to do the support and maintenance of the equipment for the machine's life. Obviously, it's added, with an additional cost. And in hindsight, like I said, if I had the confidence in that deal then as I do today, we would have sold the services as well. But I like I said, that was probably a little bit we left off the table for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it's always easy to look back on this in the past, yep, right? And say that those sort of things. And, but I imagine as a result, you've been in situations like that, more, after that moment where you've pushed a little bit more on what else you can get in the sale as opposed to
Absolutely
regretting, right? Well, this is awesome. This is great. It's always exciting to hear about, such a large deal, and even to think about how the way that you approached it, you could have gotten even more out of it, which would have been benefit for the customer. It's not necessarily just about you. It would have been things that they would have been wanting.
Sure.
But any final words of wisdom or things to share with the other B2B salespeople out there that are trying to get their big 6 month budget deal covered in one?
Sure. Well, we wrapped up, a fairly large deal in about 10 minutes. So what I would just say is a lot more went into that. Preparation is probably the biggest part of that. Learning what the customer's objections were, learning what trips his triggers, learning what doesn't. Right. I knew based off of countless conversations with him how much he was going to digest this data. I knew that he was going to appreciate us jumping in there and not just talking about it, but showing him. We have one of our core values is we do what we say. What better opportunity to kind of jump in there and show them. So I guess I would just say prepare.
I love it. I'm a big fan of that too. This is great. This has been great, Joe. Really appreciate all this. If people wanted to reach out to you further, just to maybe pick your brain or maybe even just work with RDO in general, what's the best way?
Sure. Yeah, I'd say just email me, jtoomey@rdioequipment.com. jtoomey@rdioequipment.com.
Great. And I'll make sure I put that in the show notes too. So, hey, thanks again, Joe. Really appreciate you being on. I think people are going to get a lot out of this deal.
I think so too.
Well, that's it for today's session, everyone. Thank you so much, Joe, for helping all of our fellow B2B salespeople out there improve their sales skills. For our listeners, if you like today's highlights and show notes, be sure to check out our summary on modernSalesTraining.com. Have a great sales week, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Hey, if you enjoyed listening to this podcast, then you have to come check out our free Top Performer Academy course. Inside it, I'll give you 12 sales tips that only the best salespeople do on a daily basis. Tips ranging from cold calling to running effective appointments, handling objections, and creating urgency in your deals. You can get it 100% free at www.modernsalestraining.com/free. That's modernSalesTraining.com/free. These 12 tips could be the difference between you having a good month or an incredible one. I hope to see you there.